I'm the youngest in my family. I have two older brothers, Ben and Sam. And if you ask my parents about our childhood, they'll describe this continuous tornado, this vortex of noise and energy that barreled around the house. And they'll tell you that it wasn't easy, that the three of us were a handful. And their first strategy for dealing with us was to try and reduce the energy level. And the way they did this was through low-key activities like arts and crafts and reading. But the thing is, it never worked. The three of us always inevitably would start whirling into that same out-of-control tornado. And then this one day, my mom had a new idea. Whenever the three of us were together, she would give us home improvement projects. Things that were active outdoors. Could be shoveling snow, raking leaves, building snowmen, weeding gardens. And it was a world apart. All of a sudden, the three of us had this great productive outlet for our energy, and the house, after a couple months, had never looked better. But the thing is, the story that I'm going to tell you today isn't about my parents or what to do with hyperactive kids. It's about what to do when your first solution fails. 154 million children worldwide are chronically malnourished. To put this number in perspective, it's the combined equivalent of the populations of France, Spain, and Italy. For all 154 million children, we're looking at lower IQs and incomes, fewer years of school, and for many, a never-ending cycle of poverty. I work for Semilla Nueva, New Seed in English, a social enterprise based out of Guatemala City whose mission is to end malnutrition with better corn. See, one little known fact is that countries with the highest rates of corn consumption often have the world's highest rates of malnutrition. Guatemala is a case study in this. It has the third highest rate of malnutrition in the world, and it's not about how much they eat, it's about what they eat. Corn tortillas are a staple on every table for every family across the country. In rural areas, where corn comprises up to 2/3 of a family's caloric intake, 7 out of every 10 children are chronically malnourished. And see, this isn't a coincidence. As it turns out, corn is the perfect Trojan horse for malnutrition to infiltrate a family. And it's for 3 reasons. 1, it's cheaper and more productive than other staple crops, so it gives farmers the impression that they're getting the most out of their land. 2nd, it's deeply ingrained in national and local culture. So there's actually this overwhelming social comfort in consuming corn. And finally, and most importantly, it's nutritionally empty. It's comprised mostly of carbohydrates and lacks essential amino acids that are the building blocks for protein. So if you put this all together, we've got a huge problem, right? Something that is deeply and culturally Guatemalan, something that makes perfect economic sense, and something that brings nothing to the table nutritionally. So Semilla Nueva launched in 2010 as a variety of programs that were intended to address this issue of malnutrition. It was a whole laundry list of ideas. And as one big chunk of this laundry list, Semilla Nueva encouraged farmers and their families to replace corn with beans, spinach, and other local crops that were higher in protein and micronutrients. But the thing is, over a 5-year span, we never managed to reach more than 1,000 families. And even within those families that we did reach, changes were minimal. It wasn't a failure. We were making progress, but it wasn't the change that we wanted to see. And we gradually came to the realization that our first solution wasn't working. So in 2015, we sat down with 25 farmers who had worked with us for all 5 years. We asked them for advice. Out of all of our programs, where did they see the most promise? Their answer was so resounding, so unanimous, that we cut 80% of our programs and radically restructured the organization. They told us to focus on better corn, a corn that was higher yielding, cheaper, and more nutritious. In effect, they encouraged us not to fight the system, but rather to work with it. From that point forward, our focus has been clear. To end malnutrition, we produce and distribute better corn. We do this with a lot of support and a lot of guidance from leading institutions like Harvest Plus, the Guatemalan government, and the International Center for Maize and Wheat Improvement. The corn that we produce has 70 to 100% more essential amino acids, those building blocks for protein, and 50% more zinc than regular corn, which allows us to address the two principal deficits in the Guatemalan diet, protein and zinc. Even better, it requires zero changes from farmers and their families. See, our corn is higher yielding and cheaper than most other commercial seeds on the market. And even better, it produces these soft, great tasting tortillas and looks just like the corn that farmers are used to eating. Last year, we reached just over 25,000 people with this corn. With the formal launch of our sales program, we expect to reach almost 60,000 in 2017. Our goal is to reach 1 million over the next 5 years. Being here with all of you, even over the past day, and listening to these other speeches, is so deeply, beautifully humbling. Whether it's tech or education or healthcare or human rights law, you've all picked your battle. And us at Semilla Nueva over the past 5 years in our own battle against malnutrition, we've learned a few lessons the hard way. And I wanted to throw these out there and maybe give all of you some food for thought. First, it's tempting to be comprehensive, but it's better to be targeted. When we dropped 80% of our programs, as painful as that was, we became more effective. We recognized and we accepted that we didn't have to be the ones who did everything on our own. Instead, we could do our small part, bringing better corn to as many families as possible, and we could rely on other excellent organizations to do theirs. Second, question your assumptions. When we first started promoting this better corn, based on a few bad assumptions, we talked to farmers about malnutrition and protein and stunting and amino acids, and we didn't get anywhere because that's not what really motivated farmers. With the help of another fantastic organization, Appleseed, we did a comprehensive study of our audience, and we found out what farmers really cared about. Turns out it was being good providers for their family, not feeling abandoned by the seed companies that sold to them, and the taste and the softness of their tortillas. So we restructured our marketing to focus on those touch points and immediately created a much stronger connection between farmers and our brand. And finally, and I think most importantly, don't be too quick to fight culture. You may be able to leverage it. Social innovators, entrepreneurs, we're often encouraged to reinvent, reshape, recreate to make an impact. That sentiment is powerful. It's tempting and it's valuable. But I think it's important to know when. Just like my mom took that unique approach to harnessing my and my brother's energy when we were little kids, we as social innovators don't necessarily need to reinvent to make a difference. I think instead we can make small adjustments. We can polish. We can tap into existing behaviors. But I'm not going to stand here and pretend that I have any of the answers. We're young, and at Semilla Nueva, we're very open to failure and iteration. And all of you, you're here because you're already doing incredible work. You're already making an impact. You're already exceptional. And I think all of us in this room are silently, unconsciously praying that every other person sitting here is successful. Because if all of us are successful, imagine how far we can go. So all I'm going to ask of you is to keep going. Keep doing what you do best. Keep fighting to make an impact. And please know that buried in some cornfields deep in rural Guatemala, there's a whole team of us rooting for you. Thank you.